Ice, ice, baby. This is the focus group.
They're all business, except when they're not. It's the focus group with Tim Bennett and John Nash.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the focus group. Tim Bennett here, as always, with my good friend and co-host, Mr. John T. Nash. Be sure to catch us here every Wednesday with a repeat of just the audio on Saturdays. You'll find all of our media housed, including this show and our podcast, TFG Unbuttoned, at focusgroupradio.com. While you're there, you'll also see our sponsors, including Deep Discount, which has been a partner of ours here for quite some time. We appreciate your support of them by clicking on their logo and start shopping away. Hello, Mr. Nash.
I appreciate Ice Ice Baby. It brought me back to the good old days of, I think, MTV, perhaps.
MTV, Vanilla Ice. Wasn't it Vanilla Ice? I was at a birthday party over the weekend, and they were playing it, and I just laughed. It was a bunch of, as much as we love the 80s music, the 90s were a big part of what we did, too. And that was Ice Ice Baby. Was that late 80s or?
Late 80s, yeah. And then do you remember the group Milli Vanilli?
Oh, yeah.
And weren't they the ones that were accused of, basically they were lip syncers and the real
accused
singer
of lip
was someone
syncing,
else?
but, quite frankly, another group that's very, very popular that never got in trouble for lip syncing. Lip synced all the time, according to somebody on the inside we knew quite well. So,
I know what you're talking about. It took me a second, but I'm like, okay, yeah.
Based in New York. So, so there you go.
Before you move on from music, I was listening the other day to a audio stream, and Tina Turner comes on, and it was the song "Private Dancer." I'm your private dancer. And I could sing the song. I know every song on that album. That was her comeback album.
Yes.
And that was mid 80s, right? 85,
yeah, like 1985, 86. Yeah, it was a great, great album. I laughed. This was almost a caught my eye, but I couldn't decipher whether it was a scam or not. And it had to do with music. So I love Annie Lennox.
Yes.
And so apparently some intern at a radio station, I guess it was last summer in L.A., had heard an Annie Lennox song on the internet and thought she might have potential. So contacted Annie Lennox to say that they'd like to learn more about her and her music, and thought that perhaps she had a career. She might do quite well. And it was signed by this intern or whatever from this LA radio station. And Annie Lennox posted it and said, "Oh, I'm in. I might have a chance." But someone had to tell her that, supposedly that this was, now someone said it might have been a scam and they were trying to do this to pop singers through either AI or something to try to scam these people. But when Annie Lennox posted, I just died laughing. But it reminded me of the time. Remember you discovered Coldplay about a couple of years after
I literally was going to
Grammys?
say,
yeah.
I came in one day and I said to my assistant, Robin, I found this incredible new band. And I started playing a
New
song.
band.
She goes, "You mean Coldplay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, Coldplay." And she goes, "They won the Grammy last night." And I was like, "Oh." So I could believe this was not, that this could maybe have been a real thing where the intern really thought she discovered Annie Lennox, right?
Of course, you weren't an intern for a music company, which I think if you had been, you probably would have known Coldplay. And I'm thinking, this intern. But of course, it's like the employee I had who, when I tried to let her know that Billie Jean King was standing over her shoulder, was concerned that she wasn't black, and that's who Michael Jackson sang about. So,
Billie Jean is not my love.
Where is she? Where is she? She's right behind you. Where? I don't see her. She's right behind you. She's not black.
Do you sometimes miss the earlier part of our career when this crap was going on and we were just laughing? We laughed our way. Yeah, because we didn't know any better sometimes, or sometimes we did, and I just miss some of those days.
I miss all the different, and I've done it myself, I'm sure, but I always love the mispronunciation of words or phrases or something. There was a guy at Temerlin McLean, Dennis McLean, who used to sit in the back, and I would hear him with the other folks with the agency, and I got a kick out of it. Somebody would say something stupid. He'd go, "Oh, get that down," and he would he'd have them write it. One of them was, "We don't want the Outback to carnivalize sales of the Forester instead of cannibalize. Carnivalize. Get that down. And or he doesn't need to be pigeon-toed into a corner for his career. He's pigeon-toed into a corner. I'm like, pigeon-holed, you mean? Pigeon-toed.
And by the way, it never ceases to amuse anybody to tell the story, does the bike have lips?
That is, another one. I found that the other day. I found that.
Did you find the artwork that led to that?
I found the whole thing. So they sent out. So this was the agency was giving a creative
pitch.
Brief, a pitch on different campaigns they could do with Lance Armstrong, and one of them had this forlorn bicycle that was upset that Lance had left it for the Subaru. Of course, that's very believable. So the bike was in these different locations around Paris, like just discarded at a cafe or thrown in the street or something, and then the bike would talk.
Bubble talk?
Like there was going to be a voiceover with the bike there, static, and it was going to be, you understand. You're a creative guy, so you get it. But the very literal sales guys, I still remember, like, so I don't get it. The bike's upset? It's like, yes, Lance has left the bike. He's moved on to a car. So the bike's talking? Yeah, well, somewhat. Yes, the bike has thoughts. Well, so does the bike have lips? I busted out laughing. No one else really thought it was that funny. I thought it was hilarious. Does the bike have lips?
But Tim, when that happens and you're an agency guy, those boards just get put aside. There's no way you're ever going to sell that concept when someone asks if the bike has lips, right?
Well, the speechwriter, I found out years later, the speechwriter who was deadpanned, because the speechwriter was always in everything. He was just sitting there deadpanned, and he had quite a, Roger. He had quite a personality. And I found out years later he had that whole thing posted in his office. He just had, does the bike have lips? He loved it.
Were you the one, or was he the one that would also put in to every car show speech a certain cadence of words that would throw off the presenter, and you would just all chuckle about it?
Yeah, every time. And I remember the very last time. The president of the company looked at me and goes, "Attaboy," because it was usually done for the Japanese. It made it very difficult
I
to
think
say.
what this exemplifies for our listeners is there is sometimes a whole backstory going on within companies and with their vendors. Like, we were a vendor, we were a trusted vendor, so I was in on some of these jokes sometimes. But
well, there was a Mento that sat in the corner for 12 years of my time going to Japan.
They
always talk about how clean the offices are. Clean, the Japanese are very clean. And, back in 92, someone kicked a Mentos over in the corner, and until I left at 03, it was still there.
And didn't you have other executives you'd come back and they say,
yes, the Mento there. Everybody would look for the Mento. The first thing you did when you went to the office in Tokyo was look for the Mento in the corner. It was there for 15 years.
I remember the first time you ever told me that story. And then when you follow it up, because Tim would follow up this story with like,
Mentos
so-and-so went, the Mentos is in the corner. So-and-so went, I went back, the Mentos is in the corner. Just
one time
funny.
I got flown to Japan just to be reprimanded for, no lie, 15 minutes. You know how long it takes to get to Japan. And I was with my boss at the time, Bill, and we were in a room we were never in before. We were kind of scared. It was like an interrogation room. And it was a sofa with no legs on it. And so he and I were both sitting there with our legs and our chin, and the tea woman comes in and she brings the tea and backs out of the room and bows and whatever. And then he just looks at me and goes, "Are we going to get a lap dance?" And they came in, they yelled at us, wagging the finger with a translator, and then we were done. And then he's like, "Let's go get sushi." And we spent the day in Tokyo and then flew home.
And then you went to Nihai. What's the American thing? Nihai Shinbun or something? Or no, that's their newspaper.
The newspaper is like the Wall Street Journal. No, we went to Tokyo. We went to Americatown.
Americatown, right?
Yeah, which is like going to Chinatown in the U.S. Went to Americatown in Japan, which is quite interesting. I tell people to go. I don't know if it's still there. I think they might have dismantled a big chunk of it. But
That's
it was
odd, right?
Well, everybody is all very,
very PC.
It certainly was I found it hilarious. It was a stereotype of the U.S. that, they sold Western clothes and cowboy hats. And, they had one store called the Pearly Gates and one was called Junky American Clothing. And, it was just, it was an odd, lots of bad English T-shirts and things. I wish I bought more. But yeah, America Town. But I actually looked for it recently, and it doesn't look like it still exists. But we'll see. I'll have to ask somebody. But Japan's become it's the number one travel destination for Americans.
Yeah.
Which I was
well,
shocked
they become
about.
more
I don't know
travel
what that's
friendly.
About. Yeah.
Yeah, well, they a lot of their signs now they do in English and in Japanese, which helps.
Yeah.
Especially if you're driving around the country. But yeah, I would like to go someday, frankly.
I would like to go as a tourist, not as a, I would go for business, which anyone knows who does business travel. It's a very different thing.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you don't get to really experience it. But the little times I would be on my own. The Japanese people are very friendly, very polite, very welcoming. And I did enjoy those aspects. But a lot of time it was just business stuff, and you're in a bubble. It's like anyone who comes to the U.S., you're in a bubble. What was that? What did I see? They were housing immigrants. Did you see that at the Boston airport, Logan Airport?
Yes, yeah, and they had temporary areas set up for them. And
I don't know what we're gonna do with this disaster that seems
apparently
to just keep unfolding.
We're going to wait until the next election is over to see who solves the problem. Because even though there was a bipartisan effort with some of the staunchest conservatives putting forward their ideas, wasn't good enough.
No. Of course it wasn't, John. Where you been?
Only in America, right?
Yeah, where you been? So what caught your eye this week?
What caught your eye? Here's what Tim and John found.
I think this caught my eye will be very much appreciated by Tim because it involves a character, a voice talent that created some of our absolute favorite characters when we were kids. Oh. So it's about Mel Blanc. And Mel Blanc is known as the man of 1,000 voices. He did Bugs Bunny, Yosemite Sam, Porky Pig. I mean, the list goes on and on. In fact, to kick it off, I found this little clip on YouTube, an audio clip that I think you'll get a kick out of. So I'm going to play it. Here we go.
I am known as the man with 1,000 voices. Shall I do my stuff?
Yes, go right ahead.
That's a joke, son. That's a joke, that is. Yes, that's a joke. Everybody wants to get into the act.
But that was only in 999 voices.
Shucks, I know I've got another one. Well, I'll think of
it. So he leaves. All right, so this popped up. It's from a couple of years ago, and the story is actually old, but it involves Mel Blanc, and Radiolab broadcast a story a while ago, Radiolab WNYC, and basically it was an interview with Mel Blanc's son, Noel, who is also a voice actor, and Noel Blanc tells a story of a terrible car accident that his dad, Mel, was in, that badly injured his father in 1961 as he was driving home along Sunset Boulevard from a job in San Francisco. He was driving an Aston Martin. Why not? You're Mel Blanc, right? He collided with another car on Dead Man's Curve, which is a famous part of that road. He was almost killed, but he slipped into a coma. Blanc's son and wife spent 2 weeks at his bedside trying to revive him, but got no response. One day, about 14 days after the accident, one of Blanc's neurologists came into the room, and he said, I'm going to try something completely new today. He went to Mel's bed and asked in his ear, Bugs Bunny, how are you doing today? There was a pause while people in the room just shook their heads. Then in a weak voice came the response anyone would recognize. Yeah, what's up, doc? Which is amazing, right? The doctor then asked Tweety if he was there too. And then a very weak voice said, I taught putty tat, was the reply. It took 7 more months and a body cast for Blanc to recover. He even voiced Barney Rubble in the first episodes of the Flintstones while lying in bed with a microphone dangling from above. And this Radiolab piece includes excerpts from the episode, blah, blah, blah. But the neurologist explained it this way. He said he has a theory that Blanc was such a hardworking professional that his characters lived protected from the brain injury deep in his unconscious mind. The doctor's questions must have sounded like a director's cue. Essentially, Mr. Blanc, you're on. And there you have it. So that I just thought that was an amazing thing that drew him out of the coma was his own voices that he used to do.
Do you think he was paid well?
Oh, Mel Blanc was a prolific voice talent. Yes, I think he made several appearances on the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. I think he had a very good life. I think he provided for his family and had a really good life, yeah.
There was a story, you probably saw it it was on 60 Minutes, probably a year ago, with Lady Gaga with Tony Bennett. And they were talking about as he was going through either Alzheimer's or dementia.
You mentioned this to me, Tim. This is a great story.
But it was the same sort of thing where he couldn't communicate and was really the perception that he really was not aware until he got on stage and he would hear the music and start singing and never miss a word and could sing through his whole songbook, which again must be similar to this, right? Where it was
hardwired into the brain somehow, yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. I don't know. We don't know enough about the brain, I guess, do we?
Oh, you are so right about that. But that Lady Gaga story is so much like the Mel Blanc one. I loved it because I remember when you told it the first time, and I did a little R&D on it, and the story is accurate. They would put him. He would hear the piano. He would hear the music cue. Boom, the song came out, and he was doing duets with her, and it was perfect.
It was on. Yeah, it was amazing. So it's. I wish I could use more of my brain.
Here we go.
I like to. I wish I was one of these kids. People could sit down and play the piano. My friend Matt does that. He can play it by ear. I can't. I can't do chopsticks by ear. I mean, I have a horrible time on it.
The only talent I could ever claim to have is that if you put me in front of the television and you put the first a Star Trek episode on within the first 4 to 8 seconds, I will tell you the name of that show, the title of that show.
So you can still do that? Because I think they do that to you in college?
Yes, they did. We would go up to the dorm lounge, and it was a contest, and I always won. It was like, Nash got it. It hasn't made me a dime, but it's an interesting talent, yeah.
What instrument did you play? You played the tuba, didn't you, or a French horn?
I started with trumpet, and my professor, my music teacher was Mr. Rhodes, whose son is a famous guitarist named Randy Rhodes, who actually died at a young age. But I started with trumpet, went to tuba, and then I learned baritone, because it's all the same.
Do you think you could play it now if you picked it up?
I probably could blow it and make a couple of notes, but in terms of playing it, I have not
looked
at music.
No. Any interest?
In a long time. No.
Any interest?
Actually, right after high school, going to college, that was over. It's like that, right?
Yeah, I still, I had a big plans. I was going to learn the piano. I tried finding a piano teacher down here, and she never got back to me. Somebody do lessons, but I just want to be able to play. I don't know. I want to play like Elton John right away or something.
Well, I have a friend named John who wanted to learn piano, but he wanted to learn how to play a few songs. And so he hired a teacher that taught him how to play those songs.
And that's it.
Now, he's graduated since then to understanding sheet music, and he's actually a very good piano player. But he began years ago with learning 2 songs. You could do it, Tim.
Yeah. That or the bagpipe. I always want to learn the bagpipe, although I'm not so sure that'd be so popular. There's a guy down here that's a rocket scientist, no lie, from NASA. He still helps. And he taught himself the bagpipe and wanders around the boardwalk and drives everybody crazy. But I thought maybe I'd go to him. Maybe he'd teach me the bagpipe.
Why don't you go halfway and do the accordion?
Well, Richard plays the accordion.
It's air and it's a keyboard, right?
Yeah, we could do an oompa band or something, perhaps. Mm-hmm. That's an idea. Huh. You're doing an accordion band.
He could write a song while we sell Bunky's ice cream on the boardwalk. He could be playing the accordion right next to us. Buy the ice cream.
Well, there was an accordion school right next to Subaru in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, and Collingswood, and we kept trying to. They were never open. I'm sure there's a huge demand for accordion school, but I wanted to. Just Karen Allen, I convinced her she and I were going to sign up, but every time we'd go, they were closed. But that would have been something.
Karen would have been a perfect accordion companion, I think.
Right, with a cigarette.
Yeah.
So my story that caught my eye, and I've got to test it out, and it's McDonald's. So there was a story about McDonald's, and we teased in the opening, Ice Ice Baby. But apparently McDonald's sells ice. Did you know that?
No.
So you can get McIce. I'm calling it McIce, but so many people don't know that you can grab a bag of ice at your local Mickey D's. So they said McDonald's obviously been around for 40 years. It says you may think you know all the ins and outs of your local McDonald's, but there are some employee secrets that are still getting discovered. Now, apparently they also offer birthday cakes. I didn't know that either. Did you know they have McDonald's birthday cakes?
No, and I'm wondering, is that per franchise? Like, is that something that's like chain wide?
Well, that's what I was trying to figure out because they said they said you can actually buy bags of ice at McDonald's, but you've got to check because some of they're, as you said, they're franchised, and but generally they're pretty inexpensive. So they offer cubed ice for between 99 cents and $1.50 a bag, which when you compare it to your local convenience store or something or the gas station selling it for $2-3 a bag, they said it's a very good deal. And they said that a lot of people, instead of running to a busy grocery store, getting to the gas station, you could just go through the drive-through and order bags of ice. And they said it's a purchasable item on the McDonald's menu. And they said it's a total steal. Not all McDonald's will have the amazing price point, but they should all sell ice. But they might have a different price point depending upon where you are. And they said another secret you should do is if you get home and you wanted to use it for drinks or something, and they said this is with any ice. Take it, and did you know this trick? Take the ice from the plastic bag that it comes in and dump it in a paper bag and put it in the freezer, and the ice won't stick together. I never heard
Totally
of that
new.
before.
This is like weird science. Are you serious?
Yeah, they said transfer your ice to a paper bag to avoid the ice from sticking together. They said it's a trick that many people in the restaurant industry know. So if you're buying the ice for cocktails or something, many times you buy the ice, you put it in the car, whatever, and then you have to break it up because it's all kind of stuck together. They said, but as soon as you get it, when you get home, well, it's still hasn't kind of frozen together. You dump it into paper bags, regular old paper bags, and put it in the freezer, and the ice won't stick together. So that's another thing I've got to try.
I wonder what principle even governs
I have no idea.
that. Like I'm scratching my head, like paper, absorbent, freezer.
Yeah. So I'm going to try this to see if they actually. So if you're watching the video, there's actually a bag that has a big M on it and says ice and McDonald's ice. So I was that was a new one on me. So I was surprised.
Where'd
to hear
you find
about it.
this?
It was. You're gonna laugh. It was on social media It was served up from Reader's Digest.
There you go. And you and our household as a child had Reader's Digest. I bet yours did too, right?
And so, yeah, my grandmother always got it. But I looked, but when it said, it says here's why you should get your ice at McDonald's from now on. It was like McDonald's ice. What are you talking about?
I think it's brilliant. This is great, Tim. This is a good one.
So I read it. So I'm going to have to see that because I guess you can go through the drive-thru and get a couple bags of ice. I haven't been to McDonald's in a while. I have a craving. Richard won't let me go. I wanted to go.
You want a cheeseburger, or you want fries?
Cheeseburger and fries. Everybody and a milkshake. Everybody's talking about how the prices have gone so crazy, but as everything's gone up. But I was thinking of. I'd like to go through there. Usually when I travel on the road, that's my excuse. So once a year or twice a year, if I'm doing a road trip, I'll stop. But even going to Connecticut recently, I don't. And there's really not many McDonald's, if you can believe it anymore. A lot of it's Burger King or something else. I'm not a Burger King fan. I don't know. Did you ever like Burger King?
Burger King's fine, but we were McDonald's kids.
Yeah.
No ands, ifs, or buts about it. You and I have tried Long John Silver's. We've tried In-N-Out. In-N-Out's particularly the West Coast. But who does the square burgers? White Castle.
Wendy's. And then Wendy's.
We tried Wendy's, yeah. But the thing with McDonald's, the fries, no one else does the fries quite like Mickey D's, right?
No, they're quite good. So maybe I'll do that for lunch. And I think the last time I went to McDonald's was with you. That was in Florida years ago.
Tim, that would have been years ago.
And then nighttime too. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then had the nerve to go home and order pizza, I think. Didn't we do that too?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, and then we turned the stereo up, and the next morning when we turned it on, we were like, was it that loud? Yeah.
Well, there you go. So, hey, when many of you know that Deep Discount is a partner of ours here on the Focus Group, and you can get to Deep Discount by going to our site, focusgroupradio.com, clicking on the Deep Discount logo, and start shopping away in order to own your passion. And right now, they have a silent movie sale going on. So, Mr. Nash, what did you find on the silent movie sale?
First, I was thinking with silent movies, we do have a go-to expert here on the Focus Group that Lauren introduced us to, Ben Modal.
Yep, I was thinking of him.
And am I saying it right, Modal or Modell? I think it's Modal.
I think it's Modell.
Yeah. And
I'll say it wrong.
Thanks. So I'm doing it wrong. But Ben,
that way we got it
company,
right. Either way.
But if you go to Deep Discount and you do a search by studio. He has a company called Undercrank Productions, which has been re-releasing some amazing classic silent films. So if you ever want to dive into silent film, which when he talked to us about it, had reached a pinnacle of an art form before sound came in. And he wonders what would have happened if silent films had been continued, like if sound had been delayed something, because they were really achieving some great things. So I picked a movie which surprised me that there was a silent film available for this. It's 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Huh. And we all know that's Jules Verne's famous science fiction novel. And this particular movie also incorporates elements from another Jules Verne book called The Mysterious Island. And it's the movie delivers an astounding silent adventure. An American naval crew sent to investigate reports of a sea monster have a fateful encounter with the obsessed Captain Nemo, played then by Alan Holubar, and his fantastic submarine, the Nautilus. Amazing underwater footage and color-tinted sequences are a highlight. It's silent with a music score, and it's 104 minutes, so it's like hour and a half, something like that. A little over hour and a half. I was just surprised to see this because my 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea association is with the Disney movie, which came out, and then they had to ride the whole bit. But Cool to see this. And I think you and I stayed in Fantasyland, because let's see what you picked.
Well, you know which one I would... Well, yes. So I hunted through it. I almost picked the Phantom of the Opera, but I think I've told... Did I ever tell you that horrible story about Phantom of the Opera and me?
Mm-hmm.
Out west, yeah. So it was just I don't think I could sit through it again. But so I was poking around, and I found Alice in Cartoonland. And I didn't quite know what it was, but I was intrigued by the cover, of course, which you should never do, right? And so I started reading about it, and the description here is, early in his career between 1923 and 1927, Walt Disney produced the Alice series of cartoons. So they said it's not just the mouse. Of course, everybody knows Mickey Mouse and the Mickey Mouse cartoons. They said these delightful cartoons owed their success to both a clever use of special effects, cartoon characters interacting with a live young girl cleverly superimposed within the frame, and very breezy humor. The cartoons on this DVD have remarkable clarity because they were transferred directly from 35 millimeter nitrate negatives.
Film.
And so so it's a DVD. It's $21.21 is the price. It's in black and white. So I immediately went. It was just released in 2007. Through Kit Parker Films, and it's directed by Walt Disney. So I went and looked at some previews of them and just smiled because it was very Pee Wee Herman's Playhouse to me.
Seriously?
It had a very Pee Wee Playhouse-esque effect. Remember Pee Wee would play some of the old cartoons and stuff? Yeah. And then Pee Wee would be superimposed over some of them. I mean, this was the same sort of thing. And I just laughed because there is this young girl in human form that's kind of inserted into these cartoons. So I just thought for anybody interested in cinema or cartoon as you are, and that the creative aspect and the use of special effects here was pretty cool. So I picked.
Did you find the preview of this? Did you find this on the preview on YouTube?
Yes, I did. Yeah, I did.
You're clever. Like, I don't always think of doing that because I should check if there's a preview for the 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea thing as well. And I'm going to look on and check out the Alice in Cartoonland, because when you sent this over, I wasn't quite sure what I was looking at. Now that you described it and you've added that layer of Pee Wee on, I'm in.
Yeah, sometimes on the deep discount site, they will have a preview there embedded.
Yeah.
And sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. I guess it depends upon rights and who has licensing rights and so forth. But pretty much you can find a lot of stuff on YouTube before somebody takes it down. I mean, we just got dinged again. I don't know if you told one of our shows, apparently we had something that was copyrighted, and I got an email that they want us to take it down. I ignored it. But
I just can't imagine what it is, Tim.
Remember that happened the whole time?
With, that was the music you and I got. They sometimes do this scouring thing, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So anyway, moving on with Deep Discount, we do have a new release this week, and it's The Marvels, which came out a little while ago. Carol Danvers, a.k.a. Captain Marvel, has reclaimed her identity from the tyrannical Kree. When her duties send her to an anomalous wormhole, her powers are entangled with superfan Kamala Khan, a.k.a. Ms. Marvel, and Carol's estranged niece, astronaut Captain Monica Rambeau. So the three of them kind of become the Marvels. Together, this unlikely trio must team up and work together to save the universe. So that is The Marvels, now available on 4K Ultra HD for $29.99 at deep discount. So It's a silent film sale, and we highly recommend you check out a whole bunch of silent films. If you want to add to your library and you don't know much about it, there's some really great ones. You could start with Chaplin, Buster Keaton, but I picked, naturally going down the science fiction bandwagon, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, which I never knew existed, but it's a silent film version of the Jules Verne book. Tim picked Alice in Cartoonland, which has if you are a Pee-wee fan, I just think the threading of the live action with the cartoon sounds like it's a lot of fun, and the clarity probably is amazing because they transferred this directly from 35 millimeter film negative. And the release this week is The Marvels. So you get to deep discount by going to focusgroupradio.com, clicking on the deep discount logo, and start your shopping journey there. We are going to take a really quick break. When we come back, we have a business birthday and a quick shop talk for you. So we'll see you on the other side.
You're listening to The Focus Group with Tim and John. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com. Now back to The Focus Group with Tim and John. Available pretty much everywhere.
Hey, welcome back to The Focus Group. Tim Bennett here with my good friend and co-host John Nash. We are The Focus Group. Be sure to follow along with us during the week on any of our social media, which is branded Focus Group Radio or The Focus Group. And you can also go to focusgroupradio.com and find all of our media housed there, including our podcast, which is TFG Unbuttoned. So without further ado, Mr. Nash, we have our business birthday.
Everyone does celebrity birthday greetings, but the Focus Group is the only show in the universe that celebrates business birthdays.
So today's birthday, I actually thought we might have done this before, but I went back to our archive and I did not find it. But I did find somebody associated with him.
Yeah.
I did find someone associated with him that we actually did a birthday
yes,
on.
You're right.
Yes. So Domingo Giardelli. So his real name was Domingo Giardelli, but he had changed his name when he was in his kind of mid years, which we'll get to. But he was born February 21st, 1817 in Rapallo, Italy. And his father was a spice merchant in Italy. And in his teens, Domingo went and worked for a chocolatier in Genoa. And so he learned how to make chocolate. At the age of 38, he moved to Uruguay. So Domenico, which was his name in Italian, he changed it to the Spanish Domingo. So that's how he changed his name. In 1838, he moved to Uruguay and then to Lima, Peru, and he established a confectionery there. And he began using that's when he began using his name Domingo. And he ran into a guy, James Lick. James Lick's the guy that we had talked. He was from the U.S., from California. He's the guy who we profiled a few months ago. Mm-hmm. But he met him in Peru, and because he had bought 600 pounds of chocolate in 1848 and didn't necessarily know too much what to do with it, but he wanted to bring it back to California during the gold rush. So he convinced Domingo to go with him back to California. So in 1849, they moved to California with these 600 pounds of chocolate, and they took it to San Francisco. And then they got caught up in the California gold rush, so they moved up to the mining camps to sell sweets and treats to the miners who were lacking the small pleasures of life, they said. So they spent a few months in the gold fields near Sonora and Jamestown before becoming merchants and opening a store in Hornitos, California. So eventually they moved in 1852 to San Francisco and established a Giardelli chocolate company in what is now known as Giardelli Square in San Francisco. And it's California or San Francisco's most successful chocolatier. They said around the age, around 1865, one of the workers at the Giardelli factory discovered that by hanging a bag of ground cocoa beans in a warm room, the cocoa butter would drip off, leaving behind a residue that could be converted into ground chocolate. So they said this technique, known as the Broma process, is still most commonly used today in the production of chocolate. Giardelli is America's second oldest chocolate company. originally founded. They're using the date of 1852. Among one of the first globally to develop and transport ground chocolate for drinking and baking. He was married twice.
Hot cocoa and
Yep, he was married twice, had 8 children. He died in 1894 in Italy from influenza. His body was brought back to California. He's buried at the Mountain View Cemetery in Oakland, California, along with the rest of his family. Mr. Ghirardelli. It's called. Do you like Ghirardelli
That's
chocolate?
a good 76 for that time period is not a bad age. He lived to a pretty good age.
Good age now, right?
Yeah. You got a point there. You have an excellent point there. I like this birthday, by the way. Are you a fan of Ghirardelli chocolate?
I like the little ones that come in the little individual
squares
foil
like you've
packs.
pictured here.
Right.
Yeah.
They've got the mint or the caramel. And I do like it. I always thought it's funny though. It's like Haagen-Dazs, right? The thought was that it was some exotic chocolate from Europe, but it's from California.
Yeah.
So it's but the name Ghirardelli, I always assumed it was somewhere in Europe.
So I'm thinking that Ghirardelli.
Is it Ghirardelli or Ghirardelli?
I say Ghirardelli, but that could be wrong. My pronunciation of certain words is also not exactly up.
John, we were in experimental school in Connecticut. We, as my professors told me, out to grammar. You were out to lunch at grammar.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And meaning, like when I used to think penultimate meant the next to the ultimate, but it was next to last.
Because it sounds like it should be. So I don't disagree with you.
Thank you. And then, of course, I still never get debacle right?
Yeah, debacle. I remember I wrote a paper in college, and I used the word influsive for somebody who's influential. And the professor's like, what is this? I said, someone who's influential is influsive. He says, there's no such word. I said, yes, it is. And I argued with him for quite some time until he goes, you find me where the word is. I still think it should be a word, influsive.
But did you ever succeed in meeting the bar of finding the?
No, it's because it doesn't exist.
Okay.
I made it up, but instead of being influential, I thought influsive. He's influsive. He's like influsive, and I had it all throughout the paper. He's like, "Where did this come from?" It was circled in red. I said, "Someone who's influential." He goes, "That's not a word." Yeah, it is.
You can imagine, Tim is a lot like Alicia Silverstone in the movie Clueless, where she tells her dad she argued her way from a C to a B or something. He's like, good girl. Like, we would have these arguments with our high school teachers. It flew back then. Doesn't fly in college, right?
No, but, I'm sure, yeah. No, so anyway, happy birthday to Ghirardelli, however we say it. Ghirardelli, yeah. San Francisco, have you been to the store in San Francisco, the flagship?
Oh, sure. Yeah, that's like a must-see. You have to go down there.
Yeah, I kind of like it more than because I was trying to think. What's the other one? What are the other chocolates?
Well, there's Hershey was probably the biggest competitor when he started, right?
Right.
Then you have Ferrero Rocher, you have Russell Stover, you have Ghirardelli, right?
Godiva. I tell you, I like a Whitman sampler.
Nothing wrong there, right?
I do like a Whitman. I see it on sale once in a while. I'll get one.
And does it still have that quaint needlepoint look to it?
Oh,
the box?
Yeah. It's always on sale at the Giant, which I always find quite funny.
It was made a year ago.
Yeah. So our shop talk today, John had found this, and I found it quite interesting. Something similar happened to me many years ago. But the headline is, this woman withdrew from the interview process after being told she was the strongest candidate. The reasons are instructive for any hiring manager. So this was a New York-based copywriter, Lauren Baer, and she was interviewing for a position, I guess it was a copywriting position.
Yep, full-time.
And she felt like she was given the runaround. You've talked about this as well. You've experienced with friends and so forth about almost the incessant level of interviewing, come back, do more, when in many cases, you're either told you're the strongest candidate or one of the best candidates, and rather than hiring you or hiring the person, they end up still putting you through hoops to the point of aggravation from a lot of people. And that was my takeaway on this. And she put together six, seven
little quotes, right?
Different quotes of things that people should, or that hiring managers or companies should be aware of when interviewing somebody based on her experience. And you obviously thought this was pretty good because you found this. What was your takeaway on this story?
Well, she did a couple things where she said she was interviewed with the interview process itself sucked up a lot of her time.
Yeah.
I had interviewed with 5 different team members, including the CEO. All of them agreed I was, and I quote, the strongest candidate. Then the CEO said they were down to 2 people. So she says, if you're telling a candidate they are the strongest, why aren't you offering them the job? And why are you telling them there are multiple? And are they telling the multiple candidates they're the strongest one? And she says to the company, remember, your goal is to fill the position with someone who can do the job. Then the next thing they come back to her, and Tim, I don't know if you've experienced this with please create a presentation or a marketing plan, the work, right? But at the last minute, they wanted me to complete another writing exercise on top of the 2 she had already done. And they had already liked. Not to mention, there was only meant to be 1 when the hiring process was outlined. So not only did they tell her she was the best, but they're down to 2. Can you please do another writing exam? I mean,
and she went ahead. Right? No, she went ahead to do the 3rd one, and she thought this one is ill-defined. There's no real parameters to it. She said, "I hope everybody who's interviewing it's equitable. We're all doing the same sort of assignment." And she said, the issue was she also had her own site where she had numerous samples of her writing that they could have looked at as well. And so her deal here is that she should have been given a more clear guideline. And it was really, I want to say not a waste of time, but really it did chew her time up.
It was a waste of time. Her time.
Yeah. And then
she said it had me She said it had me questioning whether they knew what they were looking for in the first place, whether this was symptomatic of a bigger internal problem, even their ethics. So that's when she made the decision to withdraw.
Yep. And then she said that there was that she was told again that she was one of the strongest candidates, but after she ended up withdrawing herself from the process and was like, okay, I'm done. I've invested enough time in here. I was told I was one of the strongest and one of the top 2, yet they keep wanting to come back with more. So she ends up withdrawing from the process and then sees that the job's posted again. So she thinks, the moral of that story is, well, there were not 2 people, or the other person got tired of the process as well, but now they're back to square one again, trying to find somebody. And whereas they could have hired her and done the job. And I've heard this more than not recently in terms of people going
this
through.
This is more common, right?
Yes, being ghosted, or can you do this? Can you do this? Can you come back? That was the other thing she said. She interviewed with a group of people, then they wanted to come back for another group. She's like, put it all in one day. I think I told you I had interviewed with a company and I stopped at midday. I went to the HR person and left. And for the same sort of thing, I was going, they were asking me questions that were so basic marketing 101 that it was insulting. And so I had 2 interviews. I'm going into my 3rd, and then I was going to go to the HR woman. Then I was going to have lunch with a group, then have 3 or 4 more interviews in the afternoon. And I went to the HR person. I just said, I'm just not a fit. I said, this is not going to work. I said, if you're asking me, as the position I came from, what a business focused have you ever done a business focused marketing plan? I said, if it's not business focused, you're in the wrong.
Marketing.
Can you imagine asking such a stupid ass question as a CFO? So, and the place was a dump. That was the other thing. The environment was just shitty.
Tim, that's a big one.
And I thought, if it's this dirty and unkept, and what a horrible environment to work in. And it was an automotive affiliated company, but I just said it's not for me. And
I had an experience a couple years ago. I think it was right after the pandemic. I've told you about this. It was a veterinarian group, and they wanted to just say hello and have me in. That's what I thought. What they didn't tell me was I was going to be there for the entire afternoon. We're talking 4 or 5 hours. And it was person after person until finally the money guy behind the operation came in. And Tim and I had just completed a major branding campaign for a high-end cannabis company out in Denver. And we're talking, they had the budgets for this stuff, or at least we thought they did. So the guy says to me, I can create a brand for $15,000. I'm like, you're going to get a certain kind of brand. Well, what do you mean by that? I'm like, by the time I left there, I left that room, and the guy that brought me in said, well, what do you think? And I said, I'm fried. I'll get back to you. Like, and I was ghosted after that. And then, I think 3 months later, they said, thanks for coming in. It was like such a complete waste of time. And it was so demoralizing that it really makes you wonder. And I think she even concludes the article with something similar, where she says, this is a job. There is always a risk that you'll hire the wrong person, but you need the good enough person. It doesn't have to be the perfect person. If you start to think you need perfection in a candidate before you extend an offer, take a look in the mirror and be grateful no one required you to be perfect for your job. Wow.
Yeah.
But Tim, you and I both had experiences.
Well, during one of these interviews, the person said to me, I don't understand. He goes, you were in marketing and advertising. It's the same thing.
No, it's not.
I said, no, it's not the same. Yes, it's the same thing.
Nope.
I thought, oh boy. So you knew right away, working in that environment, if they think marketing and advertising are the same thing, right then and there that you're.
Oh, it's like that guy said to me, I could do a brand for $15,000. Really? That might be a 1/4 payment to a designer to start working on a logo for a brand. I mean, what I'm getting at. Like, I could go online.
Our friend Mark of Mark and Carl, he told us he could do a bathroom for $300. We're still waiting. As is Carl. I'll do your bathroom over $300. I said $300 for a new bathroom. We were laughing. Yeah.
Shouldn't he add a zero or two?
A couple zeros. Right? $300.
Well, he's got taste. He's got great taste.
Oh, yeah, no, but you're not doing a bathroom for $300 unless you're just putting in a new toilet paper holder or something.
And Tim, you have one from that you should put on display. We still have ours.
Do you? Yeah, I think
it's the doll.
I think mine got ruined.
Oh,
in the wet.
Maybe it was in the basement or something in the flood, right?
No, it was in storage in the bathroom, and there was a leak which I was unaware of, which actually ruined a lot of my college stuff, my fraternity pictures and everything. I was heartbroken at the whole thing because I had kind of.
Are they savable? Could they be scanned at all and touched up?
No, they got wet, and then it just
stuck together. That it's filmed.
So I've actually had friends of mine send me. They've scanned. They're not as good. I've got to figure something out. But at the end of the day, it's not like I'm going to hang them up. But I did like having the pictures to look back on. So.
Yeah, no, I agree with that part. I completely agree with that. Yeah.
So, but I lost a lot of my little fun keepsake things like that.
I was just telling someone back to this interview story about that first interview I had at a college. At CBS Records at Black Rock in New York. Besides your friends and going to movies and hanging out, what turns you on as a person?
With a cigarette. When you can smoke in the office.
Yeah. There I am in my cheap gray suit and my red tie, wondering how to answer this horrible woman. What turns you on as a person? You really want to know, lady?
So you can get away with that stuff then.
Is that a picture of your son there on the desk? He's not bad.
I remember I showed up. I showed up to work one day when I first got the job at the steel. We couldn't feed a cat, right? We had no money, and you're supposed to wear a suit every day. Well, I didn't have enough money, so I thought, well, I'll mix it up a little bit. So I had a blue blazer and a pair of khakis, and I came in, and the boss looks at me and goes, "You going to a ball game today?" I was like, "What?" He goes, "You going to a ball game?"
What?
But I had a shirt and a tie on. I just had a blazer and a pair of khakis, and then. Another time, he had asked me whether I had found a good barber yet since I moved to Philadelphia. And I thought, I guess I need to get my hair cut. But it was always those little,
Well, you remember, for a brief while, I used to have a little hoop earring in my ear. Yeah. And that was my Judy, the third boss I had. I'm in an elevator with her. She goes, "Are you going to wear a Christmas tree out of that ear at Christmas time?" She goes, "I guess you could holiday theme it."
You knew where that was
elevator.
going.
She gets off, the elevator door closes, and the other person's like, "You better get rid of that." You and I had a lot of those things pop up. People telling us in this weird way how to do things. Anyway, I guess how would you? The summation of this shop talk is. Companies are getting kind of crazy with screening, pre-screening, pre-interview, interviews, the whole bit. And I'm glad she pulled her candidacy out of it. And then to see the job listing come up later proved her point. They didn't know what they were doing, right? They didn't know what they wanted.
Nope. And we've seen that too many times of that. So, but no, I thought that was a good reminder that in some of these cases they do waste a lot of people's time.
And they don't care. They don't care. And here you are. And then they always tell the applicant, don't seem desperate. Don't seem like you have to have the job. I mean, there's all these little rules about it, which is crazy. Yeah. Anyhow, that's the show for today, folks. We've covered a lot of different bases. It started out with Ice Ice Baby. We had a little bit of Mel Blanc, which Tim didn't know was coming. A visit with deep discount. A chocolate birthday. You have to love Ghirardelli. And then we had this resume, or this job interview thing.
Screwed in the hiring process.
That was Tim. You could tell you took journalism. You got it right down to the headline, right? We want to remind everybody to check out our partner, Deep Discount, by going to focusgroupradio.com, clicking on the Deep Discount logo, and start shopping away. They have a silent film sale. We could rewind and hear some of our picks. And, of course, we like to say, don't text and drive, arrive alive. Texting is not for behind the wheel unless you're talking to the car. You know how you could do that? Like, send a text. So everybody have a great week, and we'll see you in the new one.
It's The Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash. Accessible on all platforms. Subscribe, like, and rate us on your platform of choice. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com.
That was a stunning focus group.